Hello Java developers, welcome to this YouTube series where we are learning Java's functional programming and functional interface. These are one of the most important Java 8 features and it is heavily asked during interviews. Till now in this functional interface learning series we talked about supplier interface, we talked about predicate interface, we talked about function interface and we talked about consumer interface. Also, to support some background processing on a different thread, we talked about runnable and callable interface. Right now in this video, we will discuss about another important functional interface named BiConsumer. You must have already heard about consumer interface in the previous videos. We learned that consumer accepts one input and returns no result. Right? Let's verify this by looking at the code. Consumer interface, right? Here we can see the void method, the void accept method accepts single argument and returns no result, right? Similarly, Java provides another interface named BiConsumer, and the name itself must give you a hint. BiConsumer means it accepts two input, the first input P and the second input argument U, and returns no result. Correct? And again, it's part of the same java.util.function package. It represents to accept two input arguments and return no result. BiConsumer is similar to consumer, but it takes no argument instead, but it takes two argument instead of one. And the typical use case for using BiConsumer is to have a certain events processing. It is heavily used in event processing like publisher and subscriber. It is heavily used in observer design pattern. Both consumer and BiConsumer is heavily used in observer design pattern, and it is also used in many business case scenarios, which can be like accepting two input argument where we need to update the balance of the user in any banking application. So in order to understand the implementation of this BiConsumer interface along with a real world example, I will try to demonstrate a real world scenario where we will update the balance of users in a banking application, right? तो इसी एप्लीकेशन पे we will try to the fit application के context में we will try to implement this use case of a buyer consumer, right? So basically what I am trying to achieve here is that we have a requirement, or my wallet service has a requirement where I want to update the balance of the user or balance of that wallet, right? So in order to achieve that, I need to have two inputs, right? First, I need to identify what user it is and what amount it is to update, correct? So in this case, I can use BiConsumers to take in user as input 1 and the new amount or the change amount as a second input, and then use it as a Lambda expression to modify the user object where we finally want to update that balance or amount balance, correct? So I hope this is clear. Now we'll move ahead to our IDE and start coding this. बहुत सिंपल एग्जांपल होने वाला है, so please ज़रा ध्यान देना. We will discuss about BiConsumers. So in order to achieve this, let's first create our user, right? So already I think हम लोग ने users class पुरानी वीडियोस में बनाया था, right? So let me change this. Okay, so in order to demonstrate this ना, let's add a private method, private attribute called double balance, बराबर? डबल बैलेंस विल एड इट टू द कंस्ट्रक्टर, इसको कंस्ट्रक्टर में ऐड कर दिया है और हमें इसके गेटर्स और सेटर्स को भी डिफाइन करना चाहिए. सो लेट्स यूज द इंटेलिजेंस ऑटो feature which will allow us to generate the get balance and set balance method. ठीक है, तो users को हमने modify कर दिया, but it is giving some problem because in our earlier videos we mocked some data, right? We mocked some data from our database in a in memory data structure called list of users. So here what we will do is we will add a new property called balance and add some initial balance amount for the given user. User number 3 has, let's suppose, 3,000 rupees. User number 4 has 4,000 rupees, and this user has just 5,000, right? ठीक है, तो now we have added amounts column, balance column, correct? Now what is our purpose is we want to update those balance based on some input from the user, from the UI. It can be हमने यूज़र या यूज़र इंटरफेस से कुछ इनपुट दे रहे हैं. Maybe it can be your React application, it can be your Angular application, it can be from some HTTP calls, it can be from post method, or it can be anything. It can be from your ATM card machine, right? So let's imagine that we have multiple users data. So maybe we can implement certain thing like instead of having each user's data, right, for each second or each millisecond, doing an HTTP method, it is mostly advisable सारे enterprise application में that we first batch all the, let's suppose for example at this given time 12 p.m, right? It's 12 p.m right now, and at 12 p.m, let's suppose, is this moment, and at this minute we have multiple ATMs, right, everywhere. So मेरे जैसे I am also trying to do some transaction for that given business unit, and there is another person, another guy. So हम basically will not your application will not take my individual transaction and process it individually. eh? It would not be it will not be faster, it will be taking a lot of time, it will not be as efficient as it should be. तो यूजुअली इन केसेस में हम लोग क्या करते हैं, हम लोग बैच प्रोसेसिंग करते हैं. लाइक बैच प्रोसेसिंग विल बी लाइक फॉर अ सर्टन पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, let's suppose from 12 a.m right now to 12 a.m and 1 minute. In within this 1 minute span we will collect all the inputs we are receiving from different ATMs and finally process it to update the respective user's account, correct? So in that case what we can do is we can create a map or collection of maps of the map user and double. So let's suppose for this given minute there were two person users who did balance update, right? We'll define a hash map. Hash map will be part of a batch processing, so we'll basically collect all the input received for balance update, put it into a collection and then process it as a batch job. So let's say we have a user and username is Sandeep, right? My name, that's my user. So I will define this particular object, new user, right? And at the same given time there was another user named Raj, who also did the same transaction in the batch time, and it has a age of 32. We need to define a new keyword so that a new object is instance, right? ठीक है, तो हमारे पास दो यूजर एज ए इनपुट आए हैं. Now we want to update their balance. So how can we achieve that? We can achieve that using BiConsumer. How? A BiConsumer will accept two inputs, a user and an amount of double type. And update balance will be our supplier method, and the supplier method will be written in terms of lambda expression. Here, because we are passing in two inputs, it will accept two input as the initial input list, and users will have a set balance to the given amount value, right? It won't be set amount because it will replace uh, the 1000 balance to the input amount that we give to this lambda expression called BiConsumer. So let me modify an additional thing. We'll need to add a new add amount method to our user class so that we can update with a new amount. So it will return double of new add amount or add balance amount. This should be double return. So this balance, whatever the balance currently is present, plus the new amount that we send as an input, and this would be a return type, correct? So our consumer, the BiConsumer, basically will invoke this method once it receives the input. So this would be replaced by add amount. ठीक है, simple है. Now we have the BiConsumer function ready. Now what we will do is we will use user balance updates dash map for each, and for each accepts BiConsumer update balance, correct? ठीक है, we forgot to add this new users input user Sandeep and Raj to the user balance update. So it is quite simple. We'll simply say user put method will put the key will be the user number Sandeep, that would be my key, and the amount that we want to update for this will be 200 rupees. Another one will be the same, Raj, and it will accept 300 rupees, right? So this will be my user and double input, and my update method, this update method, the BiConsumer function, will use this Sandeep and 200 amount, the user and the amount, as an input and add it to the respective user object, right? Pretty simple. Now let's test it out. For test it out, I'll do a simple print message. Print will be user balance update upon key set. Why do we want key set? Because those are the keys where our user is present. We have set the user as our key, and we'll do a method reference to the print. So let's test this out. See, it got updated, but we were not able to receive the name of that user. So let's apply a consumer that will take in user as an input and system print out user dot get balance, right? Now let's run this. ये object method reference को print कर रहा था, which is not that useful for a developer while we are debugging. So let's just print out the get balance double value. So we can see it's 1000 and 2000. It's not getting updated. What could be the reason? That could be the reason. User dot add amount. We are already adding the newer amount with the help of the add amount method, right? Okay, so we did add amount, but we did not set this value. So this would be this dot balance right? And then we return the new balance, right? समझ में आया क्या मिस्टेक था, राइट? हम अपने बैलेंस को अपडेट नहीं करते बेसिकली, वी आर सिंपली एडिंग द अमाउंट एंड रिटर्निंग इट, बट हमें अपने ओरिजिनल बैलेंस को भी अपडेट करना था. सो वी वर मिसिंग दिस स्टेटमेंट हियर. नाउ इफ वी रन, राइट, तो with the help of buy consumer method we will able to update our balances. See, original balance was of 1000 rupees, then we passed it as input with user and the new amount. This input can be received from anywhere. It can be from an HTTP call, it can be from a web browser UI page, या फिर हम ATM से directly, maybe from some point of service device on a petrol pump or from restaurant. This input can be received from anywhere, and then it can be plugged into a batch where it will club it into a map of collection, and this map of collection can be run at any given time. Nowadays it is all real time with the help of the streams and the reactive programming. So that more reactive programming also a very interesting topic if you want to learn more advanced topic. But this is a very simple use case जहाँ पे we are doing some batch processing with the help of by consumer, and two inputs basically used to modify the first input, right? Most of this is use case. Advanced level per, if we look at now, by consumer is heavily used in patterns like observer design patterns. So if you look at my screen, right, I have one demonstration of an exercise where we heavily use this by consumer to prepare an event and list of consumers which will internally have invoking this subscribers, and it will be based on an observer design patterns where this is heavily used. So by consumers makes the foundation of many useful use case. One of them is to understand event programming, and one of them is to understand observer design pattern. Another one, it helps heavily in asynchronous programming, where we give in by consumer as an input to many methods, and it's also used heavily in streams API. So that is why it is very important कि आप ये functional interface के concepts को clear रखें in your mind. That will help you become a good Java developer and be more productive in your work and in your projects whichever you are working with. I hope you have gained some good understanding about these topics in this video. अगर वीडियो पसंद आया तो लाइक करो, और कुछ डाउट्स है या फिर सर्टन टॉपिक्स यू आर मिसिंग, then we can discuss that more in the comment section. So I hope you have understood the topic. Thank you for your time. Subscribe to this channel. We'll be creating more interesting topics like reactive programming, computable features API, flow APIs, right? All these topics will be creating in future. If we get some time, we'll also be creating maybe some data structures, how to create linked list, how to create TQs and NQs starting from scratch.